How it all ends, that's what the book of Revelation is about. We're in our fourth part, expositionally studying it, and our question today is, do you know God's plan for his church? Now remember, we already talked last hour that if you're in the church, you're a saint. If you're a saint, you're in the church. If you've been saved, you're a saint. If you've been saved, you're in the church. Being saved means you're born again into a new family, which is the church. You enter into this amazing family. And so the book of Revelation was written to the amazing family that lived in that circle. Geographically, that's the postal route. Mail would come in to Ephesus on boats, and they'd go up and then come down the river valley, and then they'd slip back over. And that was a postal route, the Roman Empire's communication system. But what it really was, most likely, were churches planted by the Ephesian believers. During Paul's ministry, see, Paul started that church, and it says that he taught for Ephesus. He started the church of Ephesus, and he taught for 3 years in the school of Tyrannus, it says in Acts 19, until everybody in Asia heard the gospel. That's interesting. What it meant was that people came, and then they left, and they went all over this province and took it with them, and these are probably churches that were started there. So here's what I found in my little half hour every day that I spend reading every section. And let's go to chapter 2. So in your Bible, Revelation chapter 2. Wow. It's the fourth hour and we've got through one chapter. That's foreboding, isn't it? I see that smile on your face right there. We have a very smart student over here, and she's calculating that at the speed I'm going, you guys are going to miss lunch some days, or supper or something. Okay, here we go. Chapter 2. To the angel. Now let's settle that right now. Do angels lead churches? Yes or no? No. How do we know that? Because the Bible says that every church, Paul appointed, Acts 14:23, elders in every church. Elders are people, and they are appointed to be the teaching, shepherding representatives of Christ. Why is it called an angel here? Because that's an English word that is, it's not a translation, it's a transliteration. There are many Greek words that if you say them out loud, they sound exactly like the English word. Let me say the Greek word for angel, angelos. Or I could say angelos. Now what does angelos sound like? Angel. But what does angelos, the Greek word, mean? A messenger. It can be a messenger on the Pony Express, riding across the country with the Native Americans chasing him. It doesn't matter. A messenger is a messenger. It could be the person that's walking out to give the announcements, at the banquet. They're the messenger. Okay, who are the messengers of the church that Jesus is holding? They're the ones, because Revelation doesn't introduce any new stuff. There is nothing in Revelation that's not somewhere else in the Bible. Isn't that neat? That means the more you study Revelation, you understand the rest of the Bible. Because God pulls all these little things out of all the most obscure dark corners in the Bible and explains them and fits them together. So the messenger is the pastor, teacher, elder of the church in Ephesus, and probably there were multiple churches in Ephesus because it was so big, local gatherings, but all of them together were the church at Ephesus. Right. Okay. Look what I wrote. Jesus designed our DNA. Now, DNA is one of the greatest proofs of creation. You know what they discovered this week? A new team found out the DNA first responders. Did you know your DNA, every coil of it in your body, has been designed to have a self-repair part that clicks into action as soon as there's some damage to that DNA. This repair part comes in. I just read the Scientific American article. It's the most amazing article. It comes in and clamps off both ends of the strand where the problem is in the middle, and it clamps it off and it works on it in the middle, and then it comes off and unclamps it. How did that evolve? How long did it take for DNA to mutate and go crazy for it to decide it's got to help itself? And how would it even think about that? You understand what I mean? And scientists, this whole mapping of the human genome is one of the bonanzas for creationism, because it so proves the divine origin of us, right down to the plans of our body. So guess who designed your plans? Jesus knows who you are. He knows where we live. And even knows which church of his body we're a part of or not a part of. Boy, didn't COVID ruin church attendance, you know? Who wants to wear a mask while you're singing, you know? Oh, it's just hard. But Jesus said, you're in the church whether you attend or not, okay? But it doesn't benefit you if you're not with the other believers. Do you know what all of us are supposed to be doing? We're supposed to be stimulating. The Greek word is the word that we would call cataclysm. We're supposed to be doing a cataclysmic, this effect on each other where we cause us to change. That's what we're all supposed to be doing, encouraging one another. Exhorting, actually, is a Greek word. And so he knows which church we're a part of. The second thing I learned is in verse B. It's chapter 2, verse 1, letter B. It says, he who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, the stars are the messengers, the angelos, the pastor teachers. Look what I wrote. Jesus holds the pastor teacher in his hand so he knows what you have been taught in your church or not taught. Plus, he knows how we're functioning as our part in his body, as a lampstand. And Jesus is with us and he walks around the churches. Now, I want to show you something. Every one of these letters has the same grid. All 7 letters to Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, right down the line. All of them start, the first part, is the name of the city. And by the way, the name of the city actually is worked into the message. I mean, these things are really integrated messages. Second thing, Jesus reveals something about himself to them, his chosen name. I mean, look what he says in Ephesus. These things, this is chapter 2, verse 1. These things says he, and Jesus said, this is who I am. I hold the 7 stars in my right hand. I walk around the 7 golden lampstands. Jesus, that's how he wants us to know him. I'm the one that's holding the message and the messenger for all my churches. Boy, does that help me. I pastored in a lot of churches. I started in Georgia, in Demarest, Georgia. That was the first church I was a youth pastor. Then I went from there to Grace Community Church and was associate pastor with John MacArthur. And then I went from there to Quidnesset Church in Rhode Island. Then I went from there to Tulsa Bible Church in Tulsa. Then I went from there to Calvary Bible Church of Kalamazoo. Do you know what was a blessing in all those churches? When you had any problems at all, and if you're ever in a church, there are problems because there are saved sinners in the church. And one of the worst things that happens to pastors is called sheep bites. You're supposed to be protecting from the wolves, and all of a sudden a sheep bites you. One of the people in the church, terrible thing. But the danger is letting the sheep bite get infected. That means you get bitter and angry and, get upset at the church and harm it and something like that. But you know what blessed me? I would hear these raucous business meetings, and I'd say, I'm so glad that when you take the offering in this church, that what you're putting the money into is not into my hands, but into the hands of Jesus Christ. So first of all that money you give doesn't go to me. You gave it to Christ. But guess what Jesus said he's doing? Revelation 2, verse 1. I am the one who holds the messengers in my hand. I said, Ephesians 4 says that pastor teachers are gifts to Christ's church. So actually, I don't work for you, I work for Christ. And actually, you didn't really pick me and vote me, even though you went through that process. Jesus decided he wanted me at this church. You understand what I mean? It just changes your whole perspective of the ministry. And so it doesn't matter how many times sheep bite you, because look what they did to Christ. I mean, no one's crucified me yet for being a pastor, and so, he understands. But his chosen name is that. His commendation, he says something nice. His concern, then he says, I have somewhat against you, it's number 4. Then he tells them an exhortation how to change. And then he makes this promise to the overcomers. And by the way, what's an overcomer? See, nothing's new in Revelation. Have I said that before? So that means if you want to understand a word you don't understand, you look where else it is in the Bible. And what is 1 John 5 all about? In fact, all of 1 John, all 5 chapters, overcomers, overcomers, overcomers. And this is the faith that overcomes the world. And who are the overcomers? Those who believe that Jesus is the Christ. And all the overcomer stuff is already explained. An overcomer is God's name for us Christians. It isn't a super class. It's not the Olympic Christians. You know, the Olympic athlete Christians are overcomers. The rest of us are, no. If you are in the church, you're an overcomer. You're a saint. And then his challenge. This ends every one of these 7 little letters Jesus wrote. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So we're going to follow that grid in all of them.